Hey New Cove, it's Pastor Brent, and welcome to day 3 of our Lent Devotional. One of the themes of the Lenten season is an increased experience of our own sinfulness and our need for forgiveness. Often, sin results in a sense of feeling distant from God, and so when we find ourselves feeling far from Him, the process of changing that usually begins with a practice of confession. Today's passage is a prayer from the prophet Daniel, found in Daniel chapter 9, and it's a great picture of the practice of confession as well as God's desire to heal and restore us in our relationships with Him. After decades of living as conquered people in a foreign land, Daniel discovers a passage from the prophet Jeremiah in which God promises that one day He will restore His people and bring them back to their homeland. And it inspires him to pray. And his prayer is a prayer of confession. There are two important parts of the practice of confession that we see in the passage. And the first is the idea of agreeing with God that we have sinned. In verse 15, Daniel says, "We have sinned and we have done wrong." Daniel owns up to and takes responsibility for his sin and the sins of the people of Israel. He agrees that it's himself and the people of Israel who are wrong and got themselves in a horrible situation, not God. And so when we are made aware of our own sin, the first thing we need to do is to be honest and confess it to God. The second element of confession that we see in the passage is Daniel's confidence that God will forgive. In verse 18, Daniel writes, "We do not make requests of you because we are righteous, but because of your great mercy." Daniel knows that God is a merciful and forgiving God. He's confident that God will forgive him because that's the kind of person that God is. Now, as followers of Jesus, we can have an even greater confidence in God for our forgiveness than Daniel ever had. Because of Jesus' death and resurrection, we can know that all of our sin has been forgiven once and for all. So as Christians, when we ask for forgiveness, we're not asking for something that we don't already have. We're asking God to allow us to experience something that He has promised is ours through Jesus Christ. The other thing that this passage shows us is God's willingness to hear our prayers, especially those of confession. And this might be my favorite part. In verses 20 and 21, we read that it was while Daniel was still praying, he hadn't even finished praying yet, that God sent the angel Gabriel to give him his answer. You see, God is more eager to answer our prayers of confession than we are to pray them. He so wants to restore us to relationship with Him. He wants us to experience His forgiveness and a greater sense of closeness with Him. And so we can be confident that when we pray prayers of confession, He is super eager to respond and answer. A sense of closeness might not come instantly, but because of who God is and what He wants for us, we can know that it's something that He'll bring down the road.